Okay, cards on the table here. I am super excited about this next session. There aren't many companies out there right now who combine the wonders of nature with the power of computers and machine learning to create a tool that can predict the future with almost uncanny accuracy. But our next speaker has managed to do just that. He's created one that does that and even more. Now, my presidency set out to take the IPA and the advertising industry on a journey into the coming future. I wanted to open everyone's eyes and minds to the challenges and opportunities of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and augmented reality. The more we know, the better we will all be able to use the new tools of computing to make magic with the machines. And as far as I'm concerned, our next speaker is a magician. Dr. Louis Rosenberg is the founder of UnanimousAI. They use artificial intelligence modeled on the swarms of nature, yes, the birds and the bees, to amplify human intelligence to optimize group decision-making, thereby creating a form of superintelligence. Yes, you heard me right, superintelligence. And it seems to be exactly that. UnanimousAI have predicted the results of the Oscars to 94% accuracy, Trump's 100-day approval rating to 100% accuracy, and even the exact score of the Super Bowl 4 months before it was played. I've actually asked him for next week's Euro Millions numbers, but he's keeping those close to his chest. Anyway, what I really want to uncover in this session is what does this mean for how we go about our day-to-day? What can this technology do to help us sell more widgets and change more people's behaviors for the better? I'm going to hand over to Dr. Rosenberg now and let him talk us through this fantastic technology. But I will be back afterwards to ask him a few questions, and hopefully you will have some too, so that we can work out how we can put to good use technology like this and help us create the marketing campaigns of tomorrow. Thank you. Dr. Rosenberg.
So today I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence used to amplify human insights. And I want to start out with a very controversial statement in the world of AI, namely that people are smart. Every person in this room has about 85 billion neurons in your heads. And every one of those neurons is connected to thousands of others, which means there's over 100 trillion connections inside every human brain. It's the system formed by these interconnected neurons that make you who you are, not just your intelligence, your personality, your creativity, your values and morals. Every one of us is a complex system of neurons. It's remarkable. After all, we humans are pretty damn smart. We've created art, science, literature, The Simpsons. The question is, can we get smarter? And I'm here to say that the answer is yes, if we use AI to amplify human intelligence rather than replace it. And that's really what we do at UnanimousAI that's very, very different than other AI technologies that you've probably heard of. Instead of trying to replace people with algorithms, we actually connect people with algorithms. We connect them together to create a superintelligence. So let me start off with an example. This is a somewhat famous example because it got a lot of press when it happened. We at UnanimousAI were challenged by a journalist at CBS to predict the Kentucky Derby, which is the biggest horse race in the US. And the journalist asked us not just to predict the winner, but to predict the first 4 horses in order. And in horse racing, that's called the superfecta. And this year it went off at 540 to 1 odds. So it's a hard thing to predict. We didn't know what would happen. And I should say that at UnanimousAI, we don't know anything about horse racing. We don't have any horse racing experts, no horse racing data. But we were game because we start the way we always start, with people. We found a group of 20 horse racing enthusiasts, not experts, just enthusiasts. And these were located all around the US. And what we do is we connect to these people in real time, online, and the way our process works is we take real people and we connect them together with AI algorithms in real time to build an amplified intelligence, an artificial expert. And this process of connecting real people and AI algorithms is called artificial swarm intelligence, or just swarm AI. And that's because it's based on how swarms in nature amplify the intelligence of groups. And I'll come back to this, but I want to finish this story first. So we built this swarm AI system, and then we asked it to predict who would come in first, who would come in second, third, fourth. And then we gave those insights, we refer to those as optimized insights, we gave those to the reporter. Now, here we're generating optimized insights about a sporting event, but we do the same thing for big companies to generate optimized insights about products, about services, about marketing messages. But here's one where we did it for this journalist. We gave her the results. She wrote a story. In fact, she went to the Kentucky Derby, and she placed a bet on the superfecta, and she tweeted out her ticket, which put a lot of pressure on us. And the reason that this story got a lot of press is because we were perfect. So anybody who had placed a $20 bet on those 4 horses in order would have won $11,000. I placed a $20 bet and won $11,000. The reporter placed a bet. A bunch of her readers placed bets. One of her readers reported winning $50,000. Now, that's remarkable, but what's more interesting is if we go and we look at those 20 people who participated. As individuals, not a single one of them got all 4 horses right. And in fact, had they taken a vote, they would have only gotten 1 horse right out of 4. But when they worked together as a system, as a swarm intelligence, they were perfect. So what is swarm AI? It's a process where we start with a real-time human group, networked human group. And these are people who have knowledge and wisdom and insight and intuition, the things that most AI systems ignore, we think are the most important. And what we do is we connect these people together with AI algorithms to build an artificial super expert that you can then ask questions to. You can ask questions about anything, from marketing to sports to finance. And what you get out the other side are more accurate predictions and decisions and evaluations and insights and forecasts. Right? There we go. So how does it work? I like to say it all goes back to the birds and the bees, and fish, and ants, because all of these creatures have evolved methods of amplifying their intelligence by thinking together in systems. This is why birds flock, and fish school, and bees swarm. They are smarter together than alone. Now, I'm not talking about crowdsourcing the way we humans do, by taking votes or polls or surveys. I'm talking about forming systems, real-time systems with feedback loops that are so deeply interconnected that a new intelligence forms with its own personality and intellect. I'm talking about forming a hive mind. Now, biologists refer to this as swarm intelligence, and it ends up being a natural step in the evolution of most social species. So what is swarm intelligence? Biologists have been studying this for 50 years, studying it in birds and bees and fish, and what they found is that nature, over hundreds of millions of years, evolved this method of amplifying the intelligence of groups, of generating insights from groups in an optimal way. Now, what nature does not do, nature does not take polls, conduct surveys, or run focus groups. There's no survey monkey in nature. Nature also doesn't analyze big historical data sets. There's no big data in nature. What nature does is it forms systems, real-time systems with feedback loops so that groups can think together and converge on optimal solutions in unison. This is why, again, birds flock, fish school, bees swarm. They become smarter together than alone, which then raises this question: can people form a swarm intelligence? If birds and bees and fish can get smarter together, why can't we people do it? And this was really the inspiration for my company, UnanimousAI, to be founded 4 years ago. And this is what we've been working on. And over this time, we realized that the answer to this question is yes. People can form a swarm intelligence. They just need the right technology. And so this is a natural swarm. And for years, the team at UnanimousAI has been studying these natural swarms and how they amplify the intelligence of groups. And we've been creating the algorithms and interfaces that allow humans to form these similar swarms by connecting online. And so this is an artificial swarm. Each of those little magnets you see is controlled by a person logged in from anywhere in the world. And they're all working together to move that glass puck by manipulating these magnets in real time. And so when you look at this, you probably wonder, okay, well, how does a swarm like that answer questions? So let me give you another example. For the last 3 years, we've been challenged by journalists to predict the Oscars. And so we do it the way we always do. We start with people. And so in this case, we start with 50 movie fans, not experts, just regular movie fans. And we have them log into our cloud-based server called Swarm. And then once they're logged in, we can ask them all questions at the exact same time. So they're all logged in at the same time, questions show up, and they answer together. And this is what it looks like. So a question might appear, who will win Best Actress in a leading role? And a set of answers appear. And then each of the participants can control a little magnet. They control it with their mouse or a touch screen or their phone. And they're doing it in real time together as a system, all interacting. And so they control this magnet, and they put it near this glass puck, and they're going to behave along with everybody else. And then AI algorithms are working in the background to watch how everybody's behaving and finding the optimal combination of their knowledge and wisdom and insight. And so this is what it looks like when you have 50 people all working together to answer this question with AI algorithms moderating their behavior to find the optimal answer. And here they're converging on Brie Larson. And so we do this for journalists, and we did all of the different categories, and then we gave the results to the publication, which in this case was Newsweek, and then they published the predictions in advance, which puts pressure on us. And so then the question is, well, how did they do? And it's interesting to actually break it down a little bit and say, well, how would these individuals have done on their own? And on their own alone, they would have been 40% accurate, which doesn't sound great, but predicting the Oscars is hard. There's a lot of categories, a lot of options. Some of the categories are pretty obscure. Now, you can also say, well, what would happen if they took a vote, what we normally refer to as a wisdom of crowds? If they took a vote, majority vote, they do a little bit better. They get 47% accurate. So there is wisdom in crowds. But what happens when they form a system, a swarm? In this case, they jumped all the way up to 76% accurate. They became almost twice as accurate as the individual members when predicting the Oscars together as a system. And what's really interesting is we can compare to professional movie critics. How did these novices do compared to professional movie critics? The average professional movie critic across hundreds of critics was only 64% accurate. And so these 50 regular movie fans, not experts, they outperformed the New York Times, the London Times, the Hollywood Reporter, Vanity Fair. What happened was they became an artificial super expert by thinking together as a system. Now, you might be wondering what happened in 2018. There was another Oscars just a few months ago. Each year, the technology keeps getting better. This year, we were 94% accurate in predicting the Oscars and outperformed every major publication out there. Variety, LA Times, Vanity Fair, outperformed Gold Derby, which is a survey of hundreds of thousands of people, outperformed Bovada, which is a Vegas betting market that took in input from hundreds of thousands of people. And so a small swarm can do better than these really large-scale surveys. So what are the business applications of this technology? We like to think about it this way. What Swarm AI does is it starts with human wisdom and knowledge and intuition, and it builds these artificial experts that you can ask questions to. And so one way to build an artificial expert is to start with a consumer population and build an artificial expert customer that corporations can ask questions to and get optimized insights. And so, for example, we did a project for one of the largest fast food chains in the US, where we built this artificial expert by connecting together their customers from around the US, and we just took 50 people, connected them together, built this artificial expert, and then they wanted to evaluate how a new TV ad would resonate with the population. And so this television ad popped up on all their screens at the exact same time. They watched the television ad, and then as an artificial expert consumer, they answered a set of questions, generating optimized insights about how this TV ad would resonate. The other thing that you can do, in addition to building an artificial expert customer, is build an artificial expert business person. Every company has business teams that have a vast amount of knowledge and wisdom and insight. And so we can take a group of internal people inside of a company, turn them into an artificial expert, and have them make optimized forecasts and assessments and prioritizations. We just did a project a few weeks ago for one of the largest snack companies in the world. And they're making a price change to one of their major products. And so what we did for them was we connected together 50 of their sales and marketing experts from across the US. They all became an artificial expert, and in 20 minutes, they converged on an optimal forecast for what that price change will do to their sales volumes. And so these are some of the companies that are currently using Swarm AI out there in the real world. I can't give examples from most companies because it's confidential, but I can talk about one example really quickly that was done for a journalist. And so TechCrunch had a bunch of questions about self-driving cars, and they wanted us to generate an artificial expert to give them insights. And the big question they wanted to know was, what feature will drive adoption of self-driving cars? What will be the killer feature that will ultimately be the thing that companies will need to market around? And so what we did was we pulled together a swarm of about 134 consumers. And I should say that TechCrunch did their own large-scale survey. And in fact, they did a large-scale survey, and they asked these questions, and they got an answer which was safety. That safety was going to be the feature, that people were going to say, oh, a self-driving car is safer than a regular car. That's why people are going to go out and buy self-driving cars. And TechCrunch was skeptical about that answer. And so they came to us and said, well, let's build a swarm. And so here's one of the questions that we asked, and you can see what will be the greatest benefit of self-driving cars. And this is what it looks like when you have 134 people thinking together as a system, moderated by AI algorithms, and converging together on the optimal solution. And it turns out it wasn't safety, it was time to do other things. Now you can say to yourself, well, if you did this large-scale survey and you got one answer, and you did a swarm and you got a different answer, what's the difference? And what we found through lots of research studies is that a survey will give you the average answer from a population, the most popular plurality, where a swarm will give you the answer that is what the population would really agree upon as the solution that is most likely to resonate with everybody. And there's a really cool way to see this. When we run a swarm like this, we're collecting huge amounts of data, behavioral data from every single person in real time. Every single one of those magnets is being tracked and stored, and so we can look at this data in interesting ways. And so here, we do something we call faction analysis, where we can see how people were pulling over time. And at time 0, you can see that the group was really split. If you ask this simple question, what's going to be the most important factor? At time 0, the group is split. But safety was the largest plurality. Not by much, but the largest plurality. But again, you don't know. Some people might have very small preference differences between these options. And so if you take a poll, you get this simple plurality. But when you create a swarm with feedback loops, the group can converge on the answer that they can best agree upon. And this orange bar shows what happens when the group converges, maximizing their confidence and conviction. We can also look at this data in a lot of different ways. Here we're seeing how people switched between factions. And so we can very quickly see which types of people were entrenched, which types of people were flexible, what options were they willing to consider, which options would they never consider. And they can assess this by demographic. And so every single question turns into this wealth of information when a swarm converges. And so to sum up, it really starts from this fact that people are smart. This is the fundamental starting point for us. They have knowledge, wisdom, insight, and intuition. And if we want to leverage this, we can build these systems where we take network groups, we optimize the combination of their insights through AI, and we build these artificial super experts. And so ultimately, it comes down to this. Use AI to amplify human intelligence rather than replace it. Thanks.
I'm going to join you very briefly on these snazzy red chairs. I'm sure that everybody in the room has got lots of questions for you. We haven't got time to open it up right now because I've been told we've run out of time. But if you see Dr. Rosenberg in and around the place in the break, please grab him. What I find fascinating is that lots of these things often sound brilliant on paper, but you've applied it to how your technology has been used to answer specific communications, marketing, sales, and MTD questions. So it feels like it's a technology that we can, if we're clever enough, get our arms around and use within our day-to-day. One very small question, which I'm not sure how I feel about this, but does this mean it's the end of focus groups as we know them? Because I rather enjoyed those free pizzas and those tiny chocolates that you get.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is the end of focus groups. And the thing is, because people can connect from anywhere, they don't have to come to the same room, and you don't have to worry about these issues of strong personality running the group, because in a swarm, everybody is anonymous and everybody is equal. And they can converge truly on the answer that best represents the population.
Okay, and how have, you talked about how clients have used this technology to answer communications questions. How can brands or agencies take this technology to answer internal issues or internal questions? Have you been used almost like a consultancy within organizations?
Yeah, so we do projects for large corporations. We have a service we call Swarm Insight, where they have a problem and they want to get an optimized answer. And so for example, we did a project for one of the world's largest banks where they wanted to optimize their rewards for their credit cards. What would be the optimal thing to offer to customers to get people to sign up for their credit card? And so we built a swarm of their customers, and we found the optimal solution of what would be the perfect calendar of rewards on their credit card so that people would sign up. So it's those types of projects, and each project has different input, but the technology behind it is exactly the same. We can, and it's fast. We can pull these groups together in a matter of days or weeks, whereas something like a focus group usually takes a month to set up and then weeks to get your results. Whereas because everything is connected, it could happen in just days.
So possibly the end of focus groups and the end of consultancies. And on that bombshell, I will hand back to Naga. Thank you very much. That was amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.